You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 30 of Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. This is Dave Roberts, your intern at host. With me is the beautiful and talented Matt Lowe.
Morning, evening.
The brains behind the operation, Jessica Sislagi.
Hello.
How are we doing today?
Super. How are you?
You know what? I'm having a great time. I've gotten a lot of feedback from our last show.
What's everybody saying?
I'm sure they're just being nice, but I actually had a friend from high school hit me on Facebook to say how much she enjoyed it. So thank you, Roberta. And a local infamous celebrity in Paulding County, Dan Bowles, messaged me to tell me how much he enjoyed the show last week.
Are people recognizing you in public?
Absolutely. They hear my voice, and I'm like, yes, I'm that Dave Roberts.
Dan messaged me, too, to tell me that my hosting sucked.
You know,
Well, it did.
And people should know Matt was having a really, really off day, and Jessica and I just decided to savage him.
Right. You vultures. So I got my payback tonight.
Oh, yes, you did. Yes, you had a great looking meal this evening.
Yep. Y'all are eating rabbit food. And, man, I got meat sweats right now. I had a deer backstrap that was just perfect. It was amazing.
You said it was your last one, though, so what now?
Well, luckily, it's bow season has started, so I should have a few more come Saturday.
Well, that's exciting.
It is exciting.
We were drooling over Matt's meal because we were eating, like he said, rabbit food. And I have pretty good access to food, but in Atlanta, I had a co-op, Carlton Farms. I don't know if you've heard of it. They're in North Georgia, but they had dairy and all kinds of like great meat cuts and everything. They don't have anything like that down here. Everyone is kind of like fend for yourself or just eat the fried stuff.
I would think that there would be a lot of people that, I don't know, do it themselves down there. You know, raise a cow and then slaughter it.
They do a lot for like personal consumption, but I will say, and this is kind of like a tangent already, but you know, the regulations for state and federal, which you have to be approved by both, to be able to like sell your own meat is ridiculous from the Georgia Department of Agriculture and the USDA. It's almost cost prohibitive. I know there's some farmers in some of the counties that I work in who have stopped doing it. They used to go to farmers markets and things like that, and they got out of it completely because the costs were just too high, and they weren't getting their return on the investment. So
right. I know a lot of the deer processors up here. They don't process wild pigs because that requires a USDA inspection, and they say it's cost prohibitive unless they're going to butcher pigs year round as part of their own meat market. But
I think the way around it, which there are some of the older folks still do, is bartering and trading.
Right.
Because, you know, kind of like buying a gun without a background check, but
as it should be.
Right. Just smells like freedom. But yeah, so it sucks. I'm a little jealous, especially as I ate my spinach and my shredded turkey breast.
Do you want me to kill an extra deer this year for you, Jessica?
Sure.
I'll butcher it.
No.
Yeah.
Now, Matt doesn't have much of a sense of taste. So it may look good, and it could have tasted like dirt, and he would never know.
No, man, all my kids were, even the 1-year-old was like, seconds. I want seconds, Dad. And she never wants seconds.
Is that the one that was picking the pieces off the cutting board as you were doing a backstrap last year?
No, that was Logan. Oh no! No. You're talking about the one where she ate a bite and like the blood was dripping down her chin.
Yeah, I mean, she looked like a vampire.
Yeah, no, that was Ava. She's 3 now, fixing to turn 4. She wanted seconds also, but
I don't know how you keep up with their names with as many as you have.
well, the 2 younger girls are easier, but I still call them like I still call Emma Ava and Ava Emma. Usually, like the rule in our house is if I'm yelling and looking at you, I'm talking to you.
No matter what you're called, you got to answer.
That's right.
But Dad, I'm Jesus Christ.
Yep, the dogs are damn it.
Jessica, I don't know if you've ever seen Bill Cosby himself. It was a stand-up in like 1980. And that's what it's called, Bill Cosby himself.
Oh no, I haven't. I was just wondering what angle we were going with this.
That's where that quote comes from.
I'm gonna pause and let you take the reins here. I'm not.
Okay.
Have you ever seen Bill Cosby? No, he gave me a drink, and that's the last I remember.
I remember something about a pudding pop.
Right.
Yeah, this was the non-rapey Bill Cosby when he was America's dad, and he was hilarious.
Gotcha.
Oh, I may have listened to that on a flight when I was, I don't know, 10 years old or so. I asked for a set of headphones, and it was a Bill Cosby stand-up routine. So this would have been in the late 80s, early 90s. And I was laughing so hard, because I had headphones on. I didn't realize what I was doing, that other people on the plane were asking their stewardess for headphones and wanted to listen to whatever that boy was listening to.
And if you only listen to it, you miss the visual of Bill Cosby in a chocolate suit with a necktie with a knot the size of your fist. And it was just him in a chair. And I know this is awesome radio. So some middle-aged white guy replaying Bill Cosby's stand-up, but it really is. It's one of those things where you have to take it and encapsulate it in 1980 or whatever it was. And remember, we didn't know the Bill Cosby we know now. It is still funny today. Well, Jessica, when you go to these co-ops to find your beef, do you carry cash in your wallet?
Well, yeah, yes. I've never been asked that before.
Well, studies are showing that fewer and fewer people are carrying cash at all, and especially those in your age group.
Like my people?
Your people. You are responsible for every millennial.
Yes. So, I mean, when I go to like a farmer's market or something like that, I definitely carry cash. And it's pretty cash centric down here. A lot of times things are cheaper if you pay cash, or there's an extra fee if you don't, and things like that. And I don't like to travel to Atlanta without cash, but I don't walk around with like a pile of hundreds or anything.
How about you, Matthew?
I rarely carry cash. In fact, if I have cash and my wife sees it in my wallet, she's like immediately questioning, why do you have cash? So
where are you going for lunch?
Right? It's all those ones. Why do they smell funny? But now I do carry cash.
I love the delay in that too. I really do.
Well, I wasn't really paying attention, and I was just
wasn't really paying attention.
No. Right? All right. So, Jessica, that's your warning. You got to pay attention. We'll get sideways on you.
Well, I'll tell you, I think of cash as important as carrying my gun every day. You never know when something bad's going to happen. You never know when, sound like Alex Jones, 1776. You never know when something bad's going to happen. The grid goes down, or example from a few weeks ago, I popped in to grab a couple of things at the grocery store, and their system went down. they couldn't take any credit cards. So you've got a bunch of people who are losing their minds because they can't buy their groceries. And I'm in there for like 3 things because I hate being in any store. And I was able to walk up to customer service, peel off a little cash, and leave. While the rest of them were acting like they're not going to be able to feed their kids because their credit cards won't be taken, or EBT card, or whatever else they were paid with because the system was down.
Yeah,
EBT.
I have to get a dig in.
Plunder card.
there are a lot of places I wouldn't want to be without any cash. I mean, what if something happens, or you need to catch a ride, or I don't know. There's just so many things I feel like cash could get you out of, and I would hate to be without it.
Oh, absolutely. And if even just being nice, if somebody stops on the side of the road and you need a hand, be able to peel off a 20 for them. So, the
All your money's sticky. You keep saying peel off.
It's that stripper money.
God.
Matt, you're rolling better than I am. I'm not getting strippers 20s.
Yeah, right.
I got a pocket full of change. Watch her pick them up. Make it rain. I make it hail. This used to be such a classy show.
I'm like sweating in here. I'm laughing so hard. Oh my god.
I think we got to snort.
I wish I could reach the fan from here. Oh my god.
And the dog came in to check on Jessica.
Right.
Well, because I'm like falling over laughing and everything, making all kinds of noise.
Now that we've covered the cash story from every angle.
So how much change do you keep in your pocket?
Roll of quarters.
That's dangerous.
take a roll of pennies and throw it on the stage and wait. The thing is that, Jessica, it's your reaction that's cracking me up. I sound like I'm sitting here laughing at myself. I'm laughing at your reaction to me.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Cash. Carrying cash.
Carry cash. Strippers like it.
Right.
No, and you've said before, Matt, that you keep cash in your go bag.
Right.
My only thing with that is not to get dark, and we're a week past the anniversary, just about. When the attacks on 9/11 happened, nobody walking into those buildings expected that to happen. Nobody on that block where they lost power was expecting that to happen. And I'm not saying anything quite that dramatic, but just like having your pistol inside your waistband and an extra magazine on you, it's not bad to have $100 stuck back in your wallet.
Right.
In my humble opinion, not that it sounds humble.
No, I agree. It's the same reason that I typically, going into weekends where they're forecasting bad weather or whatever, that you end up with a full tank of gas and, or have a couple spare gas cans already, so that you're not, there for the rush. And I keep, I keep about a week's worth of food and some bottled water and whatnot at the house, just because you never know. Yeah, I know. Well, a week though for me would feed you for a month.
7 mouths to
Especially
feed.
right now.
Well, 9.
And then an extended thing, of course, we'd eat the dogs. But
God, I don't even want you on the show anymore. But, talking about prepping and everything, even if you're not like a doomsday prepper and you don't have a bunker or anything, I think that it's almost disturbing with the way that people have become so, I don't know, complacent with the convenience of being able to get things. They don't realize that, like, we are 3 days. I mean, if the trucks can't get to stores for 3 days, like, people will be flipping out in the streets. And, I'm not getting off in the doomsday by any means, but just people they cannot sustain themselves. There's people who go to when I lived in Atlanta, I went to the grocery store every day because I could walk. I would just go over there and get whatever I was going to have for dinner. But people, their gas is within a mile of their house, and the grocery store is just down the road, and the bank, and all these things that they frequent all the time. Like, their houses aren't really full of anything that could sustain them. And we've seen this with the hurricane. I mean, I keep a substantial amount of water at my house. I have a well, but if the power goes out, I need a generator to run the well. But people, like, elbowing each other in Statesboro at the Walmart ahead of this hurricane, and it wasn't even coming here, and they're already panicking, and shelves are gone and empty and everything, because people know that they don't have anything in their house that can help them last for a few days in an emergency. It's frightening.
Right. I know last year when that freak snow thing hit here, it was like 12 inches of snow, and the power was out here, and other than the fact that the power was out and it was annoying, so the kids had to entertain themselves without electronics. I was in New Orleans when it happened, and my wife was fine. I don't know, because we're prepared for some things.
Well, here's the hog trail already. I was in Houston. I could have picked you up. The flights were canceled. Then they gave me a ticket for a flight that already left. And, of course, you can't get a hold of anybody at Delta during an emergency like that. So
right.
The power went out here, and it was my fault. It was my personal fault. As I was sitting in Houston having a margarita, talking my neighbor through how to wire up my generator to my furnace. But it was my fault. So three of us, super intelligent moment here, rented an SUV and drove into the storm through the first snow these Cajuns had seen in Louisiana. Like, hey, did you see that stuff falling from the sky? They hadn't seen it in a generation, and drove into it across the Tensas Bridge that was iced up and into Atlanta.
So I was working at a hotel in the French Quarter, and I'll never forget, it was Friday. Or no, it was a Thursday night, and the guy that was supposed to be delivering some of the cabinet doors that we were installing was on the north end of Lake Pontchartrain, and he said, "I'm not bringing your doors today because there's snow in the forecast." And I was like, it's not snowing yet, man." He's like, "Yeah, but it might. So I'm not going to get out on those roads." And that was it.
He was already on Pontchartrain?
Yeah, he was on the north shore of it. Look, it flurried a little bit that Friday, but I got up and left Saturday morning pretty early, and I was pretty close to Hattiesburg, Mississippi before I started seeing a whole lot of snow. And then it wasn't a whole lot. It was just 2 or 3 inches clear to Birmingham, and it wasn't until I got on the east side of Birmingham on 20 where it really started looking like, holy crap, there's a lot of snow here.
Well, I should have gone that way, because I took I-10, and that big bridge across Mobile was icy. Sorry, Jessica.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I was actually in Atlanta for that, which was ironic, because I was flying out to go to Baton Rouge. And I had gone up a day early so I could get my hair done, and they closed, and I was ticked. Oh, I was livid. I'm like, if I'm on the roads, you can do my hair.
Right.
Priorities.
So I had to go on my trip without my hair being done. So,
not all heroes wear capes.
Yeah, and you know what else? It's a great segue into our next topic, which is the labor shortage. I mean, if you're not willing to risk your life to do people's hair, to stay at work in a storm like that, like, what will you commit yourself to?
Especially as much as it costs to get a woman's hair done.
Right. I mean, I was very disappointed in the workforce that day. But.
Well, it's everywhere that you find it. Every trade, every trade magazine, every news story talks about the upcoming labor shortage. And what we're seeing, even with the increase in trade schools, is fewer and fewer people willing to do what I call work, not chill out and scroll through Facebook, not work, like grab a tool and go to work. And, there aren't many people like Matt Lowe who, when out of work, says, okay, I'm going to grab a tool belt and go do something. Of course, not many of us have a litter at home.
Well, I wonder, though, is it a shortage of people to actually do the work, or is it a shortage of people willing to do a good job with that kind of work? Because
we have multiple factors. One is soft skills. Show up on time. Show up appropriately dressed. Work your entire day. Not call in sick your third day at work.
Right.
Own your own car, so your mom doesn't have to pick you up and drop you off every day because you don't know what time you're going to be done. Those soft skills, kids just aren't getting. They aren't getting look you in the eye, shake your hand. I had a 20-year-old working for me, and I was talking to a customer, and we're talking about spending a significant amount of money. I look over, and he's twirling like a 5-year-old. And I said, son, at your age, I was a leader of men. Stand still. But it also goes to what has made education so expensive, which is making it free. You get to stay on mommy and daddy's insurance till you're 26. You can go to a school and have nothing out of pocket until later. And it's free to not have to join the real world. You get to live for free, you get to go to school and hang out with your friends, and it postpones, it arrests your development. How about that? That they're not becoming functioning adults, and that at 25 years old, they still think they're going to be a firefighting astronaut.
Right. I don't know, man. I'm 40, and I still don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up. So.
Well, that's another thing. I mean, people way back when used to join a company or start a business and stick with that their entire life. They did not jump around from job to job. They didn't really have the freedom to do that or the security of knowing that there was another job around the corner, And now, I mean, I have friends who are on their, this isn't my first job with All on Georgia. I've party hopped and bounced around and would refuse to stay at a job that I absolutely hated, but I mean, people don't commit and stick it out to grow the upward mobility.
Well, and so did I. When I got out of the Army, I went into banking, and the way you made your money in banking was bank hopping. Is you'd get a promotion, you get an officer promotion, and another so many dollars a year for hopping banks, and that's not even what we're talking about. Is people who will outright refuse to do like dirty work. I sound like Mike Rowe.
Right.
With my cure to labor shortage is to get rid of unemployment insurance. You don't know how many people I've met, like Cousin Eddie from Vacation. He's holding out for a management position. Well, guess what? When you got to feed your family and there's no safety net, you find out real quick you're not too good to handle a shovel.
Right.
And I'm not talking about the infirm. I'm not talking about somebody who's, laid off at 75 years old and can't. These are relatively healthy individuals that could, even if you're not at peak physical condition. Go drive for Uber. Go to truck driving school. The best example that I've heard on this, and I wish I could take credit for it, is when I was a kid and I was home from school sick or whatever, I'd watch TV and whatever reruns were on, and every commercial was truck driving school, this school, that school, learn to work on outboards. And now if you watch daytime TV, it's nothing but lawyers. How can we sue somebody for you? And it's a paradigm shift in the way our country thinks, is that I'm going to take advantage and get paid from somebody versus I'm going to learn a skill, learn to do it well, and go out and make a living for my family.
Right. And it's like you were saying before, it's across all industries and all trades. And I mean, I believe we're headed to a point where there's an actual shortage on services. Like right now, I feel like there's still in a lot of places enough people to meet the needs of customers, but if we keep continuing down this path, I don't foresee that being the case.
Oh, and it's not the case now, especially when of course, I'm the AC guy. When it's super hot, all these companies are 2, 3, 4 days out. And that doesn't sound so bad. You say, oh, they're a few days out until it's 98 degrees inside your house. Mm-hmm. It's the third rung of hell upstairs, and 2-3 days is awful. You need somebody now, and they just don't have the manpower. They're running 18-hour shifts, and they just can't keep up. And
so do you think, I'm sorry, it's on the point that you're talking about, is that, could that be solved with more people starting a business, or people in business already having more qualified employees?
Either way, anything that puts more technicians on the road is good for the consumer. Anything that increases competition is good for the consumer. Honestly, selfishly, lower competition means more money for me.
Sure.
So, economics 101. But as far as serving the consumer, more technicians, more guys willing to work, more guys willing to go out on their own, create more opportunities for more people. Absolutely. And that's not only does it help the response time, it keeps prices in check. Not to get off on another tangent and get too much into a economics lecture, but in my industry, where the materials for my equipment are taken typically and shipped to China, where they put a tariff on it, and it's turned into copper tubing that goes into your air conditioner. It's then shipped back here, has a tariff put on it, and then it's manufactured here, and then you have it put in by technicians who know at this point of their value, because every time they go to a supply house, they have another owner slipping them a business card saying, "Hey, we'll pay you another $50 per piece that you install for us," and so the labor prices go up. So the person who's being squeezed by this, even in a great economy, is the consumer.
Right. Matt?
I'm still stuck on 98 degrees inside my house. If that happens, I'm knocking on your door, Dave.
If it's 98 degrees in your house, we're not friends.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not coming to hang over at your house. But yeah, it happens. I've been in houses where the thermostat doesn't read anymore. And one of these houses I walked in, and this woman is boiling noodles on the stove, and the thermostat is past 100. It just can't read anymore. And she's waiting to talk to her husband to get permission to spend a small amount of money. It's like, I'm going outside where it's only 90.
Now, if it's 98 degrees in my house, I'll be like, whatever it takes, get it done.
You're going to put on a skirt and work the corner?
250 grand? Fine. Fix my air.
I'll do anything for Freon.
Right. My wife, on the other hand, man, she would, now, if the heat goes out in the wintertime, I'm like, whatever, put on a sweater. My wife would spend a fortune for the heater.
Well, you can make yourself warm. You could put on extra blankets. You let the dog on the bed. You put socks on, once you're naked laying under a ceiling
Right,
fan,
yeah.
that's as cool as you're going to get.
Exactly. I can only get so naked.
Exactly. I tell people all the time, you know, I can only get so naked before they arrest me. I'm sorry, Jessica. This entire show has been just so beneath your standards. It really has. Speaking of warm places, the mayor of Miami wants to criminalize Airbnb in the city limits.
Ooh.
Yeah, if it pleases the crown, might I rent mine own property to pay my mortgage? And
So this is outrageous because, granted, there's a tiered system for the number of offenses, but they want to make it not just criminalized where you can face a fine, but you can actually spend time in jail for renting out your home.
Third offense, jail. First is $1,000. Second offense is $3,000.
It's
That's-
insane.
It's just I don't. I am sure that I'll find something to say in a little bit, but right now I'm
right now you're taking it back. Look, a lot of people use VRBO, which is vacation rental by owner, or Airbnb to pay for their second homes. And South Florida is known for having snowbirds. These folks that have a home down there and come down when it's cold in Canada or New York or wherever they're coming from. And during the summer months, they go home, which is the peak time for renting for families. So it's a perfect match for people to be able to make a, I don't know, have interpersonal relationships in commerce.
right. I don't know though, man. Airbnb, there's a, because it some of it or a lot of it functions very different than VRBO, in that Airbnb many times is you're renting out a room in their house, and the owners are there. So, I mean, sometimes
They're basically just house guests.
yeah, or it's like a bed and breakfast, but not.
Right.
Well, and that's whatever. Not my thing. I don't even want a bed and breakfast, to be honest with you. I mean, I want my own space. But if that works for people, that's fine. If you're renting out one part of your house, that's fine. Now I understand if someone's running a hotel and they're causing a traffic problem or they're somehow impacting their neighbors, but that's not typically what I see with VRBO or Airbnb or anything like that. You would never know other than if you're a nosy neighbor that says, hey, they got a different car in there every other week.
Dude, I will bet the farm that this comes down to tax dollars. That
Well-
they're going to find a way for the government to get their cut, and then suddenly it won't be criminalized.
They're already past that because the article on Reason about this, the mayor, Dan Gelber, said that the heavy-handed punishments are necessary because residents, quote, continue to engage or conduct business without a business tax receipt as required by the city in spite of existing civil penalties. And there's actually a lawsuit right now because the Florida Constitution prohibits excessive fines and fees. And it says that as of last year, the city had issued $6.5 million in fines, some of them upwards of $20,000 for unauthorized short-term rentals.
Holy
So
crap.
It's totally about money. And people are just refusing to pay them. It says that they've only collected $125,000. So you're right. The angle, instead of having these massive civil penalties, is to charge them with a crime and collect the money that way. Because if you don't pay your fine, then what happens?
You go to jail.
Right. So it's just absolutely ludicrous. I mean, $6.5 million in fines is a lot of money, even if they're $20,000 a pop.
Right? Good Lord.
It is. It really does boil down to control and dollars. the same reason cities want to keep Uber out, because there's no tax base to get Uber. They have a basic disdain for any sort of freedom, wanting to tax online purchases, and everything else. It is every bit about getting your dollars back into the city's pocket. It is to extort and steal at every opportunity.
Yes, because taxation is theft.
Because taxation is theft.
Well, and this is just, I mean, the very root of the problem in our nation, that you can't do what you please with your own property. I mean, if there is, I'm not a fan of HOAs, but if someone moves into a neighborhood knowing there's an HOA, like, you abide by their bylaws. If these people live in condos and there's the HOA signs off on allowing this type of thing, what's the big deal? I mean,
right.
Other than some campaign donations from the hotel lobby.
And that's got to be part of it too.
I'm sure it is. I don't know, man. I'd like to see politics get a little more nasty.
Well, you understand.
I mean, look, someone go whip his ass in the street, and maybe he'll think twice about saying some dumb things again.
Well, that would not be new for Miami. You understand that Miami is built on cocaine.
Right.
All those buildings came about because the drug dealers were making so much money in the 70s and 80s, they had to do something with it. I mean, you talk about boxes and boxes and boxes of cash. So what did they do with it? They built hotels. A city that is built on illicit activity, telling somebody you can't do what you please with your home, that we tax you on, which is a sore subject because I just got my tax bill.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, at least you got kids are getting educated with that money.
I mean, I don't agree with property taxes or any taxation, but I will give Bullitt County a pass because my taxes are like $600 a year. So.
Really?
Not really, yeah. It's not bad.
Man.
Yeah, I'm a bad guy. I'm a bad guy when I say you could put kids in a single-room schoolhouse with a blackboard and get better results.
Well, I mean, I don't know, man. It's proven that the dollar spent doesn't equate to a better education.
Yeah, well, we keep throwing money at it anyway. Did you see the Time magazine cover that came out today?
What's a magazine?
No. Well, it's on Facebook, so you still should have seen it. It says, it's Time magazine, and it says it's a woman sitting at a school desk, and it says, I have a master's degree, 16 years of experience, work 2 extra jobs, and donate blood plasma to pay the bills. I'm a teacher in America.
Nice. You know,
and I'm like, they make 60, 70 grand down here in elementary school.
Right.
And of course, that's political hyperbole. As we're coming towards the midterms, here's the thing: nobody drafts you to be a teacher. It is something that you decide you want to do, and there's nobody growing up that thinks that I'm going to go be a teacher and I'm going to be so rich. You do it because that's what you want to do. You do it because that's what you love. My sister-in-law is a elementary school teacher. She does it because she loves it, and it's truly it has to be a calling. But you go into it knowing what the pay is going to be. Now, I was in a meeting with Howard Maxwell, was there at the time, and I actually heard somebody in the same conversation, his wife is a teacher, complain about his taxes going up and then complain about teacher compensation. and this guy is educated. Is he? Well, he has a piece of paper that says he is. You know, if you want teacher compensation to go up, it's very simple. You do away with public schools. You go private. You let schools compete for dollars, and then you start attracting the best teachers, and then you will see teacher pay go up for those that excel in their field. Competition works whenever it's tried.
Right.
And there goes any shot I have at school board. Shut it down.
Right? I vote we abolish this.
Oh, a side note for everybody that has forgotten, Matt is the planning and zoning czar. And the meetings are very entertaining to watch because Matt's questions are usually like, well, is it your property? Does it affect anybody else? Approved. And he has friends that are not very nice to him that constantly text him while watching it online with awful suggestions just to see if we can invoke some sort of reaction on his face while the camera's on him. And he's trying to be this respectable Mr. Lowe.
Right. Oh, jeez.
And yet, Paulding County's still standing after all the fuss they made about you sitting on that board.
Right. We talked about that a little bit on this show, how ridiculous that was.
Dumbest thing I've ever seen. Literally the dumbest political nonsense, outrage. I've never seen anything like it.
It was purely because Matt is an online troll. If he sees a pot at Walmart, he goes and grabs a stick and stir it to see what happens. So just his name being mentioned in one of these Facebook groups, people start coming out of the woodwork to yell about what a horrible human being he is. I'm sorry, Jay. It's funny because when you actually talk to Matt, you learn a sense of humor. You realize he kind of is.
It's true.
Sorry, Jessica. What were you going to say?
Oh, nothing. I was going to go down a rabbit hole, but the Lord sent you to interrupt me, so I will not do it. So.
Well, while we're on Matthew Lowe, we've got an interesting story of public land versus private land in California.
Matt?
You gonna give the synopsis
Okay,
of the story?
There's a trail that's been there a long time that goes through. I'm not reading it right this second. I thought you had it, Matt. This is the one story you read.
No. I read them all now, but no. Jessica has a little outline of it that she did.
I did. It's a little more in depth than there's a trail that's been there.
Well, then delete that and say, "Who go?"
Oh no, we're not deleting that.
Yeah, not deleting anything.
You said it. It's on the record.
Thank you, Greta.
Really quick. Never mind. No, not going there. So there's a trail that's been there for a long time in Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area in the San Bernardino Valley in California. And it's between, there's a trail that goes through a gated, wealthy community where a bunch of developers are continuously trying to improve the property and increase land values and property values and all that fun stuff. And so they have deliberately tried to stop and deter people from using this trail that is part of the public land in the Hidden Valley, specifically the ranchers. And basically, at this point, a man is suing because he was told he could not go through the trail the part that went through the community. And when he started pushing back, they allegedly left a deer carcass on the trail to attract mountain lions and all kinds of other wildlife, and then set up deer cameras to catch this all and to show how dangerous it is and what a threat it is to the community to have this trail going through as public land. And the trail has been there for 40 years, longer than the homes and the developments, which are homes to like Sylvester Stallone and Wayne Gretzky and people like that. But the conundrum here is that it is still a public piece of property that slices up private land and is in the middle of these disputes. So, Matt, take it away.
Well, it's it looks like when you read it, some of it, like they were supposed to deed part of the property over as an easement to it, and then they never did. And then it looks like at one point in the court battle process, they tried to say, "Oh, well, we'll give you this part over here," and it was like, the tops or the ridge of this, really rocky outcropping that just was impassable. But it's so strange out there. The whole property and what constitutes trespassing in a lot of Western states out there is very strange, compared to the way that we have it here. As I was told y'all earlier, that in a lot of places, like with the rivers, that even if somebody owns land on both sides of the river out there, that the area below the high water mark on the banks of a navigable river is open for public use. Like if you're trout fishing, you can run all the way up in there, and if there's something blocking the waterway, you can get out and go around it, and you're not trespassing. There's other strange things where the water itself is public access, but if you touch the bottom, you're trespassing. And I've heard stories of guys out there fishing, in some kind of a float or whatnot, and the landowner standing over them, watching, waiting for their float tube or raft or boat or whatever to touch a rock on the side of the bank, so they can call the cops out there and have them arrested for trespassing. But back to this thing, it really, I don't know, man. I kind of, like, I'm with y'all. This trail was here for 40 years before the development was. They made some agreements early on regarding the trail and access. Just because it didn't get put into the paperwork, there should be, it should be a good faith thing at this point. And then they did admit, by the way, to throwing the deer carcass out there. They said they wanted to see what it would attract. But I don't know if y'all have kept up with it as far as mountain lion attacks and whatnot out in California, since they quit hunting them out there, have been on the rise. So that's some dirty stuff that they're doing, and I'm sure I've heard a lot of stories very similar to this regarding waterways. Waterways are typically where it happens, not trails. But my guess is out there it's just going to get uglier.
Well, waterways are a different thing altogether out there, because that had to do with ranch land and access for cattle to get to waterways and commerce. When I moved up here, to move to Fayetteville from South Florida, there was a pond that my parents' property backed up to that did not belong to them. And we were given permission by the neighbor to use the pond. And we did. We boated and fished and hunted and all that stuff. And years later, my brother bought the house, bought my parents' house, and I was waiting for him, and he was late meet me. So I was sitting there. I grabbed a fishing rod and went down to the pond. Well, the new owner came down to greet me. And it wasn't an ugly confrontation or anything else, but he sure let me know, yeah, well, that agreement doesn't apply anymore. The land hasn't been deeded. It may not. Sure, it comes down to rich people not wanting poor people in their backyard. And that's exactly what it boils down to, is Clint or Wayne or whoever doesn't want people riding through his backyard. And it could be because they don't want to see him. It could be because they don't want beer bottles being left that people do. So with legal standing, it not having an easement, them not having right of way, the fact that the trail existed doesn't mean the land's not theirs. And, get off my lawn. I mean, it's Clint Eastwood.
Well, the other thing too is that this is not going to be settled in a single court hearing. I mean, these types of things drag out and for years and years and years. My family has property in New Mexico, and there's a lot of development out there with solar farms right now. And the local town people, not far from our ranch and some other places, have been battling these solar companies for years. And the projects make a little progress, and then they're back in court. And then they get some property loaners on board, and then they're back in court. I mean, and all of the land is surrounded by federal land preserves and things like that. And when you're dealing with that kind of stuff, it's not a simple, well, let's come to a compromise, and that's usually not the case.
Well, it never is in court. I mean, it's not like watching CSI or anything like that, where you're gonna take something and wrap it up within an hour. Even simple lawsuits can go on for 3 or 4 years by the time you get discovery and going back and forth. And of course, I'm no attorney, but I've been involved in some legal stuff that it just drags on forever. And this could be something that's a generation down the road before it really gets settled, or it's going to end up being in California, some law that gets passed that takes the land through eminent domain or something else if they want it, with the way that they do stuff out there.
It's a mess.
Sure is.
Another mess.
Yes, the mess in New Orleans, lower Ninth Ward.
Still,
the aptly named Make It Right homes are falling down. This is Brad Pitt's charity, and I believe that his heart was in the right place. Put homes up, and I'm assuming that they were built to be affordable, in the lower Ninth Ward to replace homes damaged by Katrina, and offered loans to displaced New Orleans to move home. But part of his vision, being Brad Pitt, was clean materials, and he hired designers from around the world that were not necessarily familiar with the geography and the unique challenges that go along with building in a swamp. So, Matthew, you're in the construction business. What happens when you put non-pressure treated wood in a swamp?
It rots very quickly. And I read this. It's that's kind of, they're having a lot of fungus problems. They're talking about mushrooms growing and things like that. And I know they were. I have a hard time. It's easy to look at this and be like, well, they probably should have known better. But as a guy who is in the construction industry, you do whatever the guy that's paying you wants you to do, right? And you can tell him all day long, this ain't gonna work. And he'd be like, well, find a way to make it work. So part of me, man, I don't know. I'm having a hard time feeling sorry for these people, because I think at some point they bear some responsibility to that. I mean, they were buying these homes, obviously very steeply discounted, but I saw in the article it was talking about $130,000. $130,000 to me is a lot of money. So if I'm spending that, I'm gonna have some inspections done and really see what I'm getting for that money.
And Jessica, as a homeowner yourself, how much of this do you think comes down to maintenance?
Constantly keep up your house with little things and big things, and preventative maintenance. I mean, the article didn't really touch on that. I mean, think of all the things we do around our homes as to keep bigger problems at bay. Not just a minor fix in the interim, but things that you do to, like, servicing your HVAC. That's not something in this situation, but it's the same concept of keeping things up. You don't wait until the whole house is consumed with mold to address the mold.
Right. When you notice the wood is growing mushrooms, maybe it's time to replace it.
Right.
Well,
So
and as a South Floridian originally, we just called it mildew, and you wiped it with bleach.
Right.
And that's something that was part of just living in a high humidity area. Was that's every so often
Sure.
you'd pull the refrigerator out and wipe behind the refrigerator. Uh, and to your point, Matt, a lot of this is caveat emptor, and the buyers had to be aware of what they were getting. They were so impressed that they were getting something deeply discounted, something for nothing, that they jumped at it. You know, is this a time to sit and bang on Brad Pitt? No, I mean he's not a builder. He was doing something within his values. Certainly not what I would have done, but he employed people who again weren't builders. The guys who went to business school or whatever, they weren't builders, but there was nobody in charge that ever built a house.
well, I bet this kind of stuff doesn't happen in Miami where they have lots of rules, regulations, and taxes.
Cocaine.
Yeah. Lots of snow in Miami. Lots of snow.
Yeah, everyone's so strung out they don't care if there's mold.
But you know, having been in the lower Ninth Ward after Katrina, they should have bulldozed it. Just get rid of it. There was nothing. It was such a hole. It really was. I mean, knock everything down, fill it up with water, put some bass in there, and turn it into a reservoir.
Right.
You know, and I know I may be a little jaded on it because it wasn't exactly my choice to go down there. But it's.
Really? We couldn't tell.
I know I hide my feelings so well. But you know, everybody left. Everybody was gone. You know, do whatever you need to do. That these rebuilding below sea level projects, they just throw a middle finger in the face of history. This is going to happen again. It's a question of time. You're only depending on mechanical pumps to keep you from flooding and dying. What did I do, Jessica?
I'm just thinking about you making it hail.
Jessica, do you want to go to the club?
I think we should do like a live podcast from there. And
Well, Stormy messed that up.
you can demonstrate. I'm sorry.
and strip club talk and the panting comes back.
Can you go do something, please? Go on.
There I thought I was saying something semi-intelligent, and you're thinking about making it hail.
Well, I'll give you credit because I was laughing for a long time, and you really finished the thought.
I will not be deterred.
You were looking at me like, what the heck is wrong with her? But that's gonna. Well, yeah.
Back on the local scene, and something that relates to you, Jessica, is Kemp's plan for high-speed internet in rural communities.
Yes.
You know,
So
when I first heard this, I really thought this was going to be a New Deal-esque. Let's take a bunch of government money and throw it at infrastructure. While some of it is not exactly my favorite, such as eliminating sales tax on high-speed internet equipment for rural communities, well, how about eliminating the tax for all of us?
right. Or maybe or I don't know how you would do this, but the problem that we have is that local governments get kickbacks from the companies when they sell the right of way to them to use. So fiber was across the street for years, but my right of way was sold to another company, and I had to wait until there was a dispute and all that stuff for them to come to my side of the road. I mean, that's prohibiting competition and is the biggest problem. down here.
Absolutely. That's government picking winners and losers.
Right.
The next thing has to do with right-of-way is eliminate state fees for use of right-of-way. And this is where we get into words that really don't mean anything. Explore tax incentives for tech companies and entrepreneurs who are committed to high-speed internet expansion in rural Georgia. That's not really a plank. Identify and eliminate government red tape that slows expansion.
Words that don't mean anything.
Right. Explore low-interest loans to incentives, public-private partnerships. Sorry, Jessica.
No. So this is kind of on the public-private partnership thing, I guess. But, the legislature had the Rural Development Council, and I think we talked about this during session on the show, but we were hoping that they were actually going to act. And they had I think they had 4 broadband-based bills to go through the legislature. And not that I'm saying that government is the answer, but they didn't fail to act because they thought government's not the answer. They didn't like the answers that came to the floor for a vote, which is where I have a problem. But one of them was to use the existing infrastructure like EMC and power poles and allow, the partnership with these companies, which is part of taking down the regulations from the Public Service Commission side and things like that. But then you're getting into this whole proper role of each branch and who's in charge of what. But that is, everyone has electricity, from my understanding. If there's people who don't, they're probably not listening to this, so... But, but we all have power poles, and we all have the infrastructure to attach broadband to that. I don't understand why we're not already encouraging... If the government's going to get involved, why are they not encouraging that kind of partnership? Why? What does our state government and the local government stand to lose from allowing more utility companies to team up and work together?
Well, and that is on his list of things here. Harness existing technology and explore future advancements to bring high-speed internet to all of Georgia, including wireless over power lines, fixed wireless, and TV white spaces.
It's a huge problem. It really is. NASA was broadcasting some live shots from Hurricane Florence, and I'm like, I can't even get Wi-Fi in City Hall at Statesboro, and they're in the middle of a hurricane in outer space. But it is the new infrastructure. If you don't have it, your city's going to die. Your town is going to die. You cannot thrive. You cannot draw businesses without it. And I don't think it's the proper role of government by any means, but if they're not going to get out of the way completely, then they need to stop screwing around. And Kemp's plan makes sense, but I just wonder how much of it... if the legislature in an election year could not get this under their belts, when will they?
Right, and he uses a lot of explore and study, Matthew.
Right.
Words that don't mean a whole lot.
Yeah. Another thing, I was talking to, when I did my interviews, and I believe it was the Libertarian Ted Metz, who's running for governor, and probably even this Public Service Commission Libertarian Ryan Graham. They were talking about how, this idea that we have to have lines run to people's houses is outdated, already becoming, go off the cell towers, use Wi-Fi, use the 4G and upcoming 5G networks. This idea, we're already behind the curve, and we're trying to advance while we're still behind instead of trying to bring everybody up to the same caliber. But it's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Why do we have to run lines to everyone's house? We use our cell phones everywhere we go.
Right. I remember several years ago, a decade and a half ago, they were exploring the idea that power companies providing internet service that came in through the power system.
Well, and the infrastructure is there to do it. I really think that wireless is the future on it, that municipalities are going to have a wireless service that you dial into as a resident. I say dial into because I'm old.
Well, Kennesaw does.
Yeah.
The whole damn city is Wi-Fi covered.
The only thing I worry about that is Data breaches.
Yeah, they're going to look at what you're looking at, which, whatever.
Yeah, well, they're fairly aware of what I'm looking at.
All 3 minutes at a time.
3 minutes, hell.
What's he gonna cuddle?
Well, on that note.
Hold on. I think it's only fair that we tell our listeners that we recorded parts of our show, and some of these one-liners have been cycled back. Dave used that one-liner the first go-around, and I was waiting for him to say it, and he didn't. And so I took my "you ignorant slut" moment, and I delivered, folks. I delivered. Okay.
You just wanted to clarify how you knew that.
Right. Right.
All right. Well, on that note, do we have any closing thoughts?
Nope, that was mine.
Not cuddling. Okay. Matthew.
Let's see. Yeah, but it has nothing to do with much that we've talked about. And that's LWCF. Sunsets on September 30th. Call your congressman. Tell them to permanently reauthorize it and fully fund it. It is not funded by tax dollars.
All right.
And why does Congress... Whoa. If it's not funded by tax dollars, then why does Congress have to reauthorize it?
Because the money it's royalties. It's paid out of the royalties for offshore gas and oil drilling and exploration. And it's the LWCF is a land and water conservation fund.
So where do the royalties get paid to?
They go into that fund mostly. It's never been fully funded. In fact, I want to say that that it's been 60% funded a few times, but usually hangs out about 40%. The rest gets rolled in, I guess, into the general fund that the government has. But there is, I actually posted a link to it today on my personal Facebook page. There's literally a project has been completed with LWCF funds in every county, in every state in the country. Sometimes it's parks, sometimes it's a new pier in a public fishing area or something like that. But every county has benefited from it.
Neat.
But I posted a link that showed what the projects were in the state of Georgia. So anyway, pester your congressman, tell him to reauthorize it.
Or woman.
Is a congresswoman where you live?
No, but we might know some people who listen in Georgia 6.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
God, Matt. So, Jessica, how did I do?
I would give you probably like a B plus.
A B plus.
Only because we were like, the bowling ball was like dipped in the gutter like most of the show. Like it was like skating down.
Whoa, wait a minute. We were out of the gutter and talking about houses in New Orleans, and you brought us back.
Because I was thinking about when we have to preview the episode after it's been produced and how this is all going to play out in audio, and it just made me visualize throwing nickels in the air again. So it's just...
Good Lord.
Jeez.
So overall, I mean, I think we'd allow you to host again. Just we'll be more prepared.
Well, thank you, guys.
Yeah, it's been fun.